Welcome to Meredith Images tutorials. Today we're going to learn how to add a mat to our image for framing without actually cutting a mat board. So first we need to determine our sizing, and I want our frame size to be 16 by 20 inches. So now we need to resize our photo to approximately 11 by 14 inches. So let's go up to our image, resize, image size. And I always tell my students to start at the bottom of this box and work your way up. We want to be sure all three of these are checked off so that our proportions will stay constrained and we don't stretch our image. We want our resolution to be at 300 dpi so that we get a good quality print, and then we can go ahead and change our size. So right now we're at 15 inches wide. Let's change this to 14. And that makes our height a little bit more than 11 inches. So I'm actually going to change this to the 11 and let my width be slightly shorter. I want to make sure that I have enough room for my mat and not have it be too narrow. So we'll say OK. And now our photo is sized. So next we need to add a blank layer beneath, because before I add my colored mat, I want to add a thin white border. So to do this, we need to unlock this background layer so that we can add a layer beneath it. So we're going to double click on the lock, and it comes up with layer 0, and that is fine. So we'll say OK. Now this will let us add a new layer beneath it. Now there are always two ways, as with most things in Elements, that we can do this function. We can just click on the new layer icon and then drag that one down beneath it. Or the other way of doing it, if we hold down the Control key when we click the new layer icon, it will actually supposed to add it beneath it. So let's just drag that down since it didn't quite work the way we wanted. So now we're going to resize this layer. So we're going to go to Image, Resize, Canvas Size. And I'm going to check the relative box because I want to just tell it how much I want to add around it. So I'm going to type in 0.25 and make sure we're on inches, and 0.25 here, and that's actually going to add 1/8 of an inch all the way around our image. So we'll say OK, and now we have a transparent layer that has gotten slightly larger than our photo. So now we want to fill this layer with white, and the quickest way to do that is we can either click on our little defaults here and hit the switch here, or if you click the letter D on your keyboard, that will set this to the default and the letter X will switch them. So we have white as our foreground, and now if I hit Alt and backspace, it fills our layer with that foreground color. So we have our white border. Now we need to add our colored mat. So we're again going to add another layer. Let's see if the Control key works this time. Hold down Control and we'll click that, and it worked. So now we're going to resize that layer. Image, Resize, Canvas Size. This time we want to uncheck relative because we're actually going to type in the finished size. So now we want our width to be our 20 inches and the height to be 16, as that's our final size. And we'll say OK. And now there is our mat size. Now we need to choose the color for our mat. So I'm going to click on the foreground color picker, and it brings up our color picker box, and we can either click around in here and try and find a color, or in order to get one that coordinates nicely with our photo, if we bring our cursor above the photo, it becomes the eyedropper tool, and then that will allow us to click within our photo and actually choose a color right from our picture. So we want something kind of in a medium tone green. I don't want to go too light, but I don't want to go too dark because we are going to add a pattern over this color to give it that look of mat board. So let's go something like that. We're going to try that one. Say OK. Again, we'll hit our Alt and backspace, and there is our finished layer. Now if we decided that color were too dark or too light, just double click on our foreground color again, bring back the color picker, and you can, modify it a little bit from here and go a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit darker. Let's go a teeny bit darker, say OK, and again Alt backspace. That looks nice, and I think that coordinates well with our image. So now we want to add a pattern to this image. So we're already selected on that image, that layer. We're going to go up to our black and white circle, which is the Create New Fill or Adjustment layer. We're going to click on that and choose Pattern. And from here, this gives us a whole other menu to choose from. If we click this drop down, you'll see that there are several groupings of patterns that we can choose from. For this particular function, I like the artist surfaces, and I happen to like this one that's called Heavy Weave. So I'm going to double click that one. Now I want the scale of this pattern to be appropriate to the size of my image. So I'm going to change this from 100% to around 600%. And I've used this a few times, so I happen to know that that size works well with this size image. And then we'll say OK. Now this looks like black and white, and where did our color go? Well, our color is here. Now what we need to do is change the blending mode of our pattern layer to interact with that layer below it. So we're going to go up here to where it says Normal, choose that drop down, and the four most often used blending modes for this type of function is Multiply, Overlay, Soft Light, and Hard Light. So let's try Multiply first. That's going to darken our image a bit. So you can see it's a little bit darker than what we started with color-wise. So let's go back in and we'll try Overlay. That's actually going to be much lighter, I think a little bit too light. Let's try Soft Light. That looks nice. And we'll try Hard Light just so you can see it. And that's going to be a little bit harsher. I think I like the Soft Light. And that would be it. Our picture is now ready to print for a 16 by 20 frame, and we didn't have to cut a mat board. Thank you for sharing your photographic journey with Meredith Images. We'll see you again soon.